Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for not only the week of March 3rd through 9th, but I'll take a look at the month too of March, since I didn't get a good chance to look at that last week since we had so much going on. And actually this week there's not as much going on, so it kind of works out well. And there is a few things I want to talk about for the month. Also some changes going on, a couple retrogrades, the one we started yesterday with Venus, Mercury. Also, we're going into eclipse season, and we also have Neptune going to be going finally into Aries, leaving Pisces after many, many years in Pisces. And so anyway, just a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog on YouTube. If you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, please become a follower. And if you do become a follower, don't forget to turn your notifications on, or you don't know when it comes up, appreciate all the followers. Since it is free, what I ask is that you pass the link along to somebody else every time you watch it. Find someone in your contact list you can pass it on to. That's really the only way I really push the blog as far as getting it out there more. I like to let it grow in that way. And also remember, if you're not really super familiar with astrology, don't get stuck on the terms of the astrology itself. You want to hear the interpretation so that you can work with that energy. Work with that energy in your life can be in a much easier flow. And that's what you really need to know. You don't really need to necessarily know the terms of that, So, and remember, you have your own transits going on at the same time. Like, we're all experiencing the weekly stuff together collectively, but you in your own chart are getting your own transits too. So that will flavor the energy individually for you too. Also, if you don't want to watch it on video, you can still listen to it on podcast. Just check out any Astrological Winds channel. Just do a search on podcasts. You'll find it on a number of them. It's been a podcast a lot longer, and that frees you up too. You don't have to watch video. You can do it when you're doing other things, going for a walk, at the gym or whatever. Also, Astrological Winds channel has its own Instagram page. You can become a follower there. It'll show up on your newsreel, the link. And also sometimes I do post different stuff there during the week. Best place to find it is on my website, also www.astrologicalwinds.com, all one word, astrologicalwinds.com. And there's a blog tab on the top. You hit that, you'll not only find the current blog, you'll find blogs from the last few months there. You'll find the annual blog for 2025 and past years, monthly blogs. So if you need to refer back to stuff, there's also an Earth and Sky calendar tab there. You can take a look at some of the Earth holidays going on each week. And then also all my professional services are listed there. And I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years, been giving readings, trained to do that. Would love to do that for you. You will always have your chart with you. And like I said, your own week, every week you're having different energy in your chart. So it's great to, if you're interested in astrology, I really recommend you get that done by a professional like myself. It's not the same as a computer printout or reading a book or having a friend who has some interest in it doing it. To really give you a lot more out of that, and it's something that you're always going to carry with you. All kinds of different other charts too. Class forming for beginners astrology, if you're interested in that, or you can do podcast classes of recordings. If you have a group, I also have group type stuff. So check all that stuff out. Okay, what I want to do, I want to start with with March as the month first. And if you'll remember, last week I talked a lot about the very first big thing that was going to happen in March, and that was Venus going retrograde, which it did yesterday, or 2 days ago, actually, now on Saturday. And so, like I said, I gave a lot of detail in that last week, so I don't really want to spend much time on it again this week. So go back to last week's blog, but remember that Venus is going to be retrograde for a while, right? It's going to be retrograde for the next 6 weeks. So it's like till mid-April that we're going to be dealing with Venus retrograde. So and so like relationships are definitely going to be one of the big things that Venus will affect when it's in retrograde is relationships in a number of different ways. So you want to really check that blog out from last week if you didn't get a chance to, because that's something that's going to be going on for 6 weeks. Okay. So, and yeah, it will be until April 12th is when Venus will go direct again. And at that point, it will have retrograded all the way back into Pisces. Both it started its retrograde period in Aries, a sign that it's very weak in, and is going back into Pisces, a sign that it's strong in. By April 12th, so we've got a long period, and we're really going to see a lot of effects on our relationships, effects on possibly our finances, money, economy, things like that, our creativity. So please check out that blog last week if you missed it. You really want to get that down. So then on March 15th, Mercury goes retrograde too. And Mercury will also go retrograde in Aries at 10 degrees Aries. And it will stay retrograde until April 27th at 27 degrees Pisces. And notice how, like, the degrees of both the Venus and Mercury retrogrades are very similar, where where they both go into retrograde about a third of the way through Aries and then go back a little bit into Pisces, each one of them, and then end up going back into Aries, of course, later. So really key point here is this, you guys, is like, I've said, you may have heard me say this before, the three inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, have so much to do with what we're doing in our everyday life. So you guys know when Mercury goes retrograde, it can really throw things off track in our real world. There's so many things that we do every day that's Mercury that, it can really throw things off. So when two of the three planets that are inner planets go retrograde at the same time, it really can seem like the world is like busting out at its seams all around us. And we had an experience of this just recently back in December when Mars went retrograde and Mercury went retrograde at the same time in December, post election of the US, and a lot of crazy energy went on and was seeded in those first few weeks after that. And then Mars stayed retrograde, mainly in Cancer, until just a week or so ago, where it turned direct, right? And I told you guys, even back then in December, any of these ideas being planted now, any of the actions taken under that Mars retrograde, that once Mars went direct, things would probably really go off course in the sense of what people thought they were acting towards versus what the results of those actions can be. And we can see that right now, even in the administration, a lot of like knee-jerk kind of like stuff and decisions, impulsive decisions, really a lot of them coming out of fear, patriotism, all the things that Cancer represents. And now all of a sudden the brakes are being put on in many ways. We have populace upset. We have courts saying things are not correct. We have legislators saying their powers are being taken away. So there's all of a sudden a lot of these impulsive actions that were taken during that retrogrades periods are coming off. So what's going to happen now when both of these are retrograde together is we're going to see the damage that it's done to relationships, especially with Venus. This Aries energy of both Venus and Mercury showing that we made a lot of things really subjective in our decision making, and like we're not taking into account how that affected other people. So that is going to affect us both personally, and we'll see that continue to play out in the world, I'm sure, too. But Mercury retrograde in Aries, how all that the retrograde stuff of Mercury can be: communication breakdowns, the delays, things that we decide to do going way off what our expectations can be, travel getting all weird, mechanical breakdowns, technological breakdowns. And when you see Mercury in retrograde in Aries in a fire sign, that means decisions that we're making are the root of what a lot of those problems are. And in Aries in particular, being way too impulsive about our decision making and even what we're saying, what we're thinking. It's just the reckless energy. And that's what's going to cause a lot of the miscommunications. That's what's going to cause a lot of the energy to go off course during those time periods. So, it's like the mind is really quick and it's just going to be jumping to conclusions. And, here we are with it going concurrently during those last 2 weeks of March, going into the first week of April with Venus concurrently. I think that's when we're going to really see things go really, really wacky. And, it's going to be a big, big test for our relationships during that period. Now, like I said, I did a lot of detail on the Venus retrograde last week. You can go back in there. And when Mercury does go retrograde in 2 more weeks, I will give us a lot more detail on the Mercury retrograde too. But those are 2 of the biggest things going on in March. And it's really going to make things pretty weird. I can't, in our real world, it will not be functioning very well. And we're going to get a lot of brushback that was rooted in the Mercury and Mars retrograde periods. And we're going to see a lot of people upset with one another. We're going to see a lot of that energy going on. We're going to see a lot of temperamental words and actions come out of that, a lot of hot-headedness, a lot of tantrums, and especially during those 3 weeks. And it's really going to test relationships at that point. I'm really be honest with you guys. It's really, really going to test relationships. So one of the other interesting things for March is it's the beginning of our first eclipse season. So we have 2 eclipse seasons every year, and it's when the moon is getting close to the nodal axis. And so that nodal axis, the moon is getting close to it now. And so the next full moon and the next new moon are both going to be eclipses. We're going to get, let's see, on March 13th, we're going to get a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 13th. And then on March 29th, we're going to get a new moon lunar eclipse in Aries. Now, remember, eclipses can be a very quick change to things. Very rapid changes, and we can see this play out in society through events that happen that can affect a lot of people simultaneously. And in our personal lives, if these eclipses, their degrees hit personal planets or points in our chart, then we can see our lives change very dramatically. I used to say, I think about 1 out of 4 people get affected personally very, very acutely by eclipses, and can really change our lives, put it in a new direction very rapidly. Okay. And like I said, and then we can see them really play out. We can see the full moons every month play out in the public. Well, when we get an eclipse with it, it really comes out. So we can see that we're going to really see that energy. And once again, I'm not going to go into the details of those 2 eclipses until next week. Actually, we'll be going into the detail of the first one, the full moon in Virgo on March 13th with the lunar eclipse. So that next week, you want to tune in, and you're going to want to hear about that and see if that's a place where it's hitting something important in your chart. But remember, eclipse seasons, they bring in rapid changes that literally alter the course of our life, and for people who do get affected by them. Now, on March 24th, we actually have a long-term transit coming together, the first one of the year. And when I say I'm between 2 outer planets, and this one is Saturn, which is, in Pisces, if you remember, is going to sextile Uranus, which is in Taurus, right? So this, this is a time, this is a really good transit, you guys. This can be very, very useful energy. Both of these planets represent change, but in very different ways and in very opposite ways. But they're coming together in a sextile that brings opportunity for change to come, with new ideas that Uranus brings being introduced into the real world, which is what Saturn represents. So we're going to really see this probably mainly function on the social level. Saturn is one of the two social planets, and Uranus is one of the transpersonal planets. So this stuff works on a societal level. It works on a species level, even. It's big, big energy. It changes large structures and forms within cultures, civilizations, societies when two outer planets get together. So we're going to see, this play out probably in many different ways. And it could be a lot of the changes that are being introduced now will start to settle down and start to actually be implemented in a more realistic way rather than like a rebellious kind of shocking kind of way, which is the way Uranus can be by itself, or even Mars retrograde when it's acting that way. So this is like, it can bring change in a balanced way, instead of like, this like, okay, I'm gonna, be the rebel, and I'm gonna just like, be as obnoxious as possible in trying to get change to come in. This is more like, no, we're going to take a step by step. And a lot of it has to do with new information that we've been exposed to recently, and the time when we can introduce that into society, into the world, because a lot of people have learned a lot together so this is a time when literally society, groups of people, large groups of people can work together to bring change in, and that they can actually overcome some of the things that have been problematic, blocking, inhibiting things in society, and that have become like, things that are damaged and not working efficiently anymore. And so like old limits can be overcome, old limitations we can be overcome. Things that, the change can be brought in a stable way. And when in this day and age, and with Uranus, you can't help but a lot of this I can't help but think that a lot of this may be brought in by new technology, new inventions, new stuff that we can see how that can benefit all of us. We can see how like it can help resolve some of the problems we're having, give us new approaches to some of the problems that we've been having for a long time within society. And when I talk about this, like in society too, you can apply this to your own personal life too. Like, this is an opportunity. All these things I'm saying right now are opportunities for us to bring in change in a harmonious way, in a structured way, new approaches that are not shaking things up so much that it feels like, like what's going on, but it's a great time where we can see where new ideas and new things can correct a lot of the flaws that are now part of the status quo, that are part of the system. It just gives us, it puts us in a unique power situation where we can use some of our energy and combine that with perseverance of Saturn to really push, to be very determined about wanting these changes and having the patience to bring it in, and allowing growth to occur in a way that's not overly upsetting. And it's interesting too, because part of that will break us away from some of the old things that were holding us back. So it'll bring changes that will bring us more freedom in many ways. But then when we integrate these new ideas, it's going to give us new obligations. So change will also not only come from freeing us from past stuff, But change will also come from obligating us to new ones. But we can have success now in overcoming broken situations that have been broken down, and we can be freed from them and create a new order out of that. But we will have new duties in within the framework of that new order. Okay, and then the last big change of the month is Neptune going into Aries. Now, just like Venus retrograde at the beginning, I've already talked about this in length. And that was at the annual 2025 blog. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't checked that out yet, you need to go back onto my website and go look at the 2025 or listen to the 2025 blog, because that's the biggest long-term changes going on. Neptune going into Aries is massive, you guys. It's a massive change. Going out of Pisces for like 14, 15 plus years or so, in the sign that it really likes to be in, and a lot of spiritual revolution going on. Well, going into Aries, Neptune can be a lot more troublesome. And I mentioned a lot of stuff in there. So this is when it's first going to dip into Aries, and it will go retrograde this year and eventually go back into Pisces on October 24th. But then January of next year, it'll be in Aries for good for, I think it's 14 years, if I remember right. But I really went into this extensively, and Neptune can be a very troublesome planet to the collective. It can be a warlike type god, and it rules liquids like water and oil, two very important resources that are dwindling away as population increases and economic stratification increases. So this is a very dangerous time. Please go back to that blog and check that out. I really just can't get into that. I need to get into the weekly at this point. So that's what's going on. A big month, a lot of changes, eclipses, two inner planets going retrograde, a nice outer planet connection between Saturn and Uranus to bring in change in a steady way, and also the huge shift of Neptune going into Aries at the end of the month. So the weekly for March 3rd through 9th, only three things I want to get into. Mercury, the big thing is Mercury is going into Aries, and that's today on Monday. And then later on in the week on Wednesday, it's going to sextile Pluto. And then next Friday, we've got a nice Sun trine Mars. So some good energy this week. So Mercury going into Aries today is the biggest change of the week. And that is, remember, as I just said, the sign that it's going to go retrograde in later on March 15th. So it's going to stay for a long time in Aries. That means it is going to drift back a little into Pisces towards the end of the retrograde, the last week. And then when it turns direct, the first week of it going back direct, it'll be in Pisces also, but then it'll go back into Aries again for another 3 weeks after that. So we're going to get probably, I'm going to ask, what is that? About 7 of the next 9 or 10 weeks, 7 or 8 of the next 9 or 10 weeks, 11 weeks, we're going to spend with Mercury and Aries. So we're going to get a lot of Mercury and Aries energy, and so Mercury and Aries is headstrong. That's the first thing that always comes into my mind when I think of Mercury and Aries. And it's a time when we really want to push our beliefs. We really want to push our thoughts, our opinions. We mouth off about it. We don't listen very well. And we can be very impulsive in our decision making. That impulsiveness can mess us up. We have I talked about a little bit with the retrograde, but when we are so impulsive that we're not considering a lot of things before we make a decision or take action, then many times they go off the rails and we don't get the results we want. But Mercury in Aries is a very positive, optimistic, and enthusiastic energy of the mind. It really is ready for a challenge. It loves debates. It will turn a debate into a good-natured argument or even into a temperamental argument. We can be very insensitive towards what others believe and what their thoughts and opinions are. Does it sound like our world right now, right? So this can be a very pushy energy. It can be a very coercive, rough energy at times where our thoughts are very, very subjective. when Mercury is in Aries. And I really, my opinion is that our ego really sits in our mind too. So, Mercury is our mind, and Aries is a very subjective energy, so we may just reject people's thoughts and beliefs and opinions just out of hand for no reason at all. Just because we're so married to ours that we're not even really willing to even allow anything else in. It's a very non-receptive Mercury when it is in Aries. It is not a good listener, and we do things out of habit. We make impulsive decisions and we reject things out of habit, jump to conclusions way too quickly, just really allow our own, really kind of can shoot ourselves in the foot, by the, and so like, the one thing I will say, besides, all this, stuff is that, when we do believe in something, we really will fix onto it. And if we know that we're right, if we know, feel that we're really right, that's a good thing, But the thing is, a lot of times we're thinking too fast, speaking too fast, and not allowing other people's input in. So that can create a lot of the conflict, and the mind and the ego get really married to what they believe in. So then on Wednesday, Mercury will continue its journey, and since Pluto's at the beginning of its sign and moving very slowly in Aquarius, Mercury will sextile Pluto on Wednesday. So this is a great day to really do research and investigative work with your mind. This is like anything that you're interested in becomes almost like a fascination, or to the point of almost an obsession. So anything that we really want to get to the bottom of, really see the inner workings of, this is a day to really delve into that, to do the research, to really look deep into things, and get a great understanding of the inner workings of anything we want to put that energy into. Now, also because Mercury does, obviously it rules all the communications, we can have some very profound communications with others too that really bring the minds of the two parties, or the people involved in the communications, to some very deep levels of things where there's some really deep new understandings of things. So very precise, sharp, acute minds and concentration. Now, one of the things we naturally are interested in with Mercury Pluto is actually how the human mind is functioning. So any kind of depth study, psychology, anything to do with the human mind and its workings, or even getting to the bottom of how our mind works, or sensing how other people we know minds works, or even the society or groups that we belong to, like really getting a good sense of the inner workings of that stuff, which can be very, very useful. Anything that catches our attention on Wednesday in the middle of this week, we will want to look into very thoroughly, and we'll learn new things from it. It will transform the way we look at things, our thoughts, and then we're going to want to get it out. Then we're going to want to even, almost get to the point of trying to coerce other people into seeing it our way. We're going to be very enthusiastic about like pushing like what we've seen, because it's had such a deep effect on us. So we're definitely going to want to share it with others. And like I said, and if we find another who's on that same track as us, wow, those conversations can become profound. So just a really great day for the mind, going deep. And then Friday, going into the weekend, into Saturday, really, Sun trine Mars, just great for physical energy being released harmoniously. This is a weekend where physical stuff, if you have physical work to do in your career or your job, if you have physical work to do around your home, if you have projects or hobbies that are physical, this is a time where you can really get a lot done. The energy will flow harmoniously, push it ahead. This is even good energy to start new projects in under, because it's such a push ahead energy. Also, like if you're not doing that, like it is great for like sports, athletics, adventures, taking a hike, climbing a mountain, whatever, like just like getting that energy out, being really enthusiastic about it. And it's great too. I mean, usually this is individualistic energy. The sun and Mars are very subjective and egotistical. So, it may be something that you're doing alone, that's like, this energy output. But if you have other people that can match that energy and interest, then yes, go with them, climb them out with a group of people who are into that. Or team sports too is really good. When people have the same goal, like a soccer team or a hockey team, shooting into a goal, this is just such harmonious energy between the moving parts. So like even group projects can work out really well like that, but if people can't keep pace with you, you don't have to wait for them. There's a lot of self-motivation here, and and this positive, enthusiastic energy that we'll bring to the stuff we're doing usually guarantees success. Very courageous energy too. Like we're willing to take on things that normally we might hesitate and be like, oh, maybe I don't want to take that risk. No, this attitude is one where we're like ready to push on. We're just feeling good in our own skin about who we are and really wanting to like interact and motivate, and life will flow with us therefore. So just a really good weekend to be active next weekend. Could do a getaway where there's a lot of active energy around it. All right, well, that's what I've got for not only this week but for the month of March. Next week, like I said, I'm going to look at that full moon lunar eclipse, and it is at 24 degrees of Virgo. So that's, you guys, people 24, 23, 25 mutable signs, that's, you guys are going to be the ones getting hit by that eclipse the most. Also next week, Mercury will be going retrograde on the 15th and joining Venus. So that's what I'll be talking about next week. So a lot of changes coming up now, guys. There's going to be a lot of brushback from the energy of the last few months. It'll mainly play out in relationships, probably in economics, maybe even in creativity too. And, and it can be really, like I said, there's going to be a lot of blowback in relationships, but there's going to be a lot of change coming in soon too from those from those two eclipses for many of us. And like I said, big shift with Neptune and Aries. Go back to the annual on that, but some ability to bring in change, because now we're all collectively seeing where the problems are and some of the solutions. So it's going to be a really exciting month, but it's also going to be a very trying month, especially for relationships and possibly with economics too. All right, you guys, I will see you all next week. This is Matt Lutton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Please pass the link along to somebody else right now. If you'd like to give a donation to the blog, it does cost me a little money to put it out. My Cash App is $Matthew, capital M with two T's in Matthew, and then Lawton, capital LAUTEN. No donation is too small. Venmo also, it's the sign @ and once again, Matthew, capital M, two T's in the middle, hyphen, and capital LAUTEN. Also, please check out the website if you need a reading, all kinds of different readings. If you're a professional and you need weekly or monthly or daily readings, I work very intimately with professionals who need that, especially in key times in their life. Or even if you're not, if you're someone personal going through a key time in your life and you need advice on a monthly or weekly or daily basis, please, let me know. All kinds of other readings too, you guys, relationships, children's, elections. For groups, I can do workshops, lectures, classes, mini readings at your event. And I do have a beginner's astrology class that's going to go live this spring. Anybody who wants to get involved in that, let me know. And there's always classes available on podcast too at your own pace. All right, check all that stuff out on www.astrologicalwinds.com. That's www.astrologicalwinds.com. I will see you all next week.